Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man ihtada bihada wa nashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la wa nashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Allahumma allimna, Allahumma la ilma lana illa ma allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'ana wa anfa'na bima allamtana wa zidna ilma. Allahumma aftah ilayna hikmatak wa anshur alayna rahmatak ya dhal jalali wal ikram. Wa salli Allahumma ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi al-kiram wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everybody. Our fifth session today, inshallah, and our subject for today is entitled Being and Becoming. Being and Becoming. This is truly the most central part of the human being, because we understand human, but we don't really understand being. And we use the word being in the English language as something that has been taken for granted. This is really the central point, the innermost aspect of you when you want to contemplate your reality. Your true being. Who are you? Where have you come from? How did you get here? Where are you going? What do you anticipate ahead? In what Ghazali says that the path to knowing God begins with knowing yourself. And this knowing of the self, not the self as the object, but yourself, goes inward from the self into the heart, into the consciousness, into the will, and then into the being. This is who you are. Not your individuality, as they say, or your identity, as they say. All these elements, the individuality, the personality, the characteristics, the identity, like the name, these are all associations. They are all given to the being. So we can know the associations, we can know the extensions, we can know the expansions of the human being, but the being itself, that is truly the most, the end unveiling of who you are. Now, this is a very complex field. In fact, I would say in philosophy, it is the most complex field of study, the most complicated, and it is uncharted territory. Many philosophers have attempted, have ventured deep, some have ventured very deep, but have not truly come to the conclusion of it, myself included. I'm not going to claim to have all the answers for you. But one of the central aspects of this crucible of abstinence of Ramadan is this mode, or putting yourself in a state of deep contemplation. Because when we say deep contemplation, means you want to go as deep as you possibly can. But you cannot just venture there if you don't have the requisite knowledges and guidelines that keep you on track. Because you may emerge with certain suppositions that are untrue, that in and of themselves can be detrimental to your being. So learning the religion enables you to maintain the boundaries in which you will navigate this unknown realm of understanding or knowing your being. Because this being, when we say that this being is a being of light, okay, you cannot really see it or touch it or feel it, all right, or interact with it in any physical aspect. You cannot measure it, you can't quantify it, you can't divide it. It's a very difficult thing to truly comprehend. Now, one of the things that you find when you examine human history holistically, and this is one of the things that human beings do when we speak of taking things for granted, one of the things that are taken for granted is perception of reality. And we say that the difference between fantasy and between reality and fiction, or reality and fantasy, is a matter of perception. Most of us tend to narrow our perception to only what is right there, right in front of us. So we don't really think about, say, 10 years of your contemporary age or 100 years of this age. We don't really think about, and because the brain in its processing is limited in capacity. Larger quantities are difficult to comprehend, to rationalize. But the heart is capable of expanding that understanding. When you look at human history holistically, and you see this shift that human history has taken between, and we spoke about Adam and Hawa, right? And I said that at that time, Adam and Hawa, before they came into this world, before they were sent in, they were in a state of pure fitra. They were not yet affected by the causality of this world. When they were brought into this world, that's when now the causality began to affect them. So they still entered into this world in a state of fitra. But now, as the progeny of Adam goes through this, however many years or cycles of earthly revolution that can be quantified, there is a shift between what was pure fitra and less materialism to now what is being less fitra and more materialism. In other words, less of spirituality and more of materialism. And because of this shift, mankind is not able to get in touch with his inner reality, which, as we said, your inner reality is your true reality. And your true reality is an essential reality, meaning it's a spiritual reality, not a bodily reality. So if you examine academics, modern academics, they've made incredible advancements in medicine, in knowing the human body, in the technological advancements that have also enabled them to know the human body much more. But they know much less about the true being than our predecessors knew. So our predecessors perhaps knew less about the human body, but they knew more about the being that is occupying the body. But we're in a situation now where there's this upheaval or this shift that has taken place. And these are one of the portents of the signs of the hour. In the hadith of Jibril, the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned this. And we're going to talk about the hadith of Jibril, not tomorrow, the day after. And we're going to look at this one portent that he mentioned, where he says that the slave girl will give birth to her mistress. And one of the interpretives drawn from that is that there is a change in the natural order. And this change is that quantity is now given precedence over quality. Materialism is given a precedence over spirituality until spirituality completely, is neglected, completely removed. So here now, what I want to do is, and the reason why we started this session a bit early is just so we have enough time, because like I said, it's a very complex subject, and I want to try and give you as many beneficial points to think about as I can possibly give you, because we cannot finish this in one sitting. It's just not possible. So we want to think about, I want to encourage you or provoke you to be in a state of thinking about existence and non-existence. Now, there are three things that are incomprehensible. There are many others, but three primary things for the human being that are incomprehensible: infinity, eternity, and non-existence. And the reason why we cannot comprehend this, we can conceptualize them, and there's a difference between the two. So we know that there is something as infinity, as a concept. We know that there is infinity. There's something like infinity that exists. We know that eternity exists as a concept. We know that non-existence is a thing as a concept. Okay? But what it really is, or what it entails, its comprehensibility is beyond us. And there's a reason as to why that is. It's not just arbitrary. It's not just made like that. Allah did not just make you like that so that you don't comprehend these things. But there's a reason why. And that's because of the state of existence that we are in our current form. So we cannot comprehend infinity because we are in a finite world. We cannot comprehend what infinitum would mean, because everything that we interact with, that we are experiencing, is finite in its existence. We cannot comprehend eternity, and we're going to talk about this eternity in the session after the hadith of Jibril. When he mentions about the Sa'ah, then the session after that, inshallah, we'll be talking about the subject of time. So we're going to talk about eternity at that time a little bit more. But for now, understand that we cannot comprehend eternity because we are in a temporal state of existence. You see? And we cannot comprehend non-existence because we are existent beings. This is what we want to look at today. What does existence entail for us? What does it mean to be existent? Shakespeare's most famous line, to be or not to be. What does it mean to be? We cannot comprehend non-existent because we are existent beings, because our consciousness is what enables us to affirm or negate reality. Consciousness. That Allah has created this being, which is a point of light, and then placed this point of light inside a consciousness, so that the consciousness informs the being via affirmation or negation of what it is experiencing. Now, the being had to be existent before consciousness exists. Consciousness cannot exist before the being. So if the being is non-existent, then consciousness can also not exist. You understand what I'm saying? In order for you to affirm or negate reality, which is now to say that if you were to be in a situation where you could affirm or negate non-existence, your consciousness has to be in that. So how can it be existent in non-existence? It's not possible. The two cannot mix. You cannot be existent in a state of non-existence. Now, there's a bit of wordplay here, so bear with me, okay? When we speak about something and nothing, non-existence does not mean nothing. This is from the philosophies of Western secular philosophers. And that's because English is their language. This is where the limitation lies. And that's why we talked about language first, because the Arabic language gives you a broader scope of intellection. The English language limits you in that. To say nothing in the English language implies non-existence, but not in the Arabic language, because you're talking about shay'un. So you have got shay'un, and then you've got la shay'un, nothing. Nothing does not imply non-existence, because it is still a thing. And for a thing to be a thing, whether it's something or nothing or anything, to be a thing, for a thing to be a thing, it has to be existent. So how does this work? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala issues the amr, kun, that kun is bringing it into existence from non-existence. And what non-existence is, whether it is a place, it is a realm, it is a dimension, we don't know. We don't know what it is. We cannot comprehend it, because we cannot neither affirm it nor negate it. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We cannot negate it, so we cannot say it doesn't exist. We cannot affirm it, so we cannot say that it is there as well. So we leave it where it is. We don't know what it is. When He brings you into existence, you are a thing, but you are not something. You are nothing. And this is exemplified in the creation of the human being. When He formed Adam, He did not yet put breath into him. So Adam in the body, in the form, was a thing, but he was not a thing with substance, with essence, with anything. He was just there. So, and then prior to that, he was still a thing, but he was a thing without substance, without form, without any affiliation. He was just a concept. So when I say, if I say right now, I want to make a table, okay? If I say I want to make a table, now, we're not talking about any table that's existent. We're talking about a table that is not yet existent, but it exists. How does it exist? It exists in concept. I have it in my mind. I have a form, picture. Now, because I'm existent, my consciousness is existent, that which I cultivate in my thinking process is also existent. So it exists, but it doesn't exist in form or substance yet, or essence. You understand? So when we talk about unicorns, for instance, okay, does a unicorn exist? You would say, no, it doesn't exist. I would say, yes, it does exist. So am I crazy? Am I nuts? Let me explain. The unicorn in shape, in form, in substance, in essence, the things that actually give it a reality, a materiality, okay, it doesn't exist in that aspect. But it exists in concept because people have this in their imagination. So insofar as it being a form in the mind, it exists. It exists as a form. It exists as a word, so it exists in speech also. You understand? So there is some existence there. It's a thing, but it's nothing yet. It's not something yet. It's nothing because it doesn't have substance. It doesn't have shape, form. It doesn't have essence. So that's the early stage. That's the first stage. Then from nothing, then is when Allah, as the process is going through of creation, He has now said kun, and it has now come into existence. Now there is a fayakun, and this fayakun is continual. There is a process of becoming. So He said kun, be, fayakun. Now there's a process of becoming from nothing to something. Both nothing and something are part of existence. They're not non-existent. Nothing is not non-existent. So both nothing and something are part of existence. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. Has there not come upon mankind a period from eternity in which he was not a thing worth of mention? There was a period when you were not a thing, you were nothing worthy of mention, meaning you didn't have any substance, you didn't have any form, you didn't have any essence, you didn't have any of these elements that make you something. So this being now, since he was non-existent, Allah brought him into existence, but he is not a thing yet, meaning, or rather, he is a thing, but he's nothing so far. Then Allah puts him through a process of now becoming. Becoming what? Becoming something. So now he is now got a shape and a form, right? He's got limbs, so now when he's bringing you now into this world now, so there's a stage in which you exist at that time. So there was a stage, lam yakun shay'an madhkura. There was a state of existence in which you are not a thing. And then there was a state of existence in which you are something. Now he's putting you in a state of existence in which you become, because this is still a process of becoming. You are continually, from the moment of your creation as a being, as this point of light, you are in a process of becoming. So now there is a state of existence in which you you move from being something and now go through a process of becoming someone. You understand? So when you are born and put into this realm, you're given an identity first, a name. Now, we're going to go back to when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. He gave Adam the names of all. He inspired Adam, he taught Adam the names of all. So, when we are acquiring knowledge, do a thought experiment. Some philosophers like to call it the floating, like Ibn Sina has a floating man experiment. Okay, somebody else had a desert island experiment. Imagine yourself having just come into existence, and there are all these things around you, and you don't know what they are. How do you comprehend them? The way you would do it is you would first give it a name. Then from that name, you would give it a descriptive. Then from that descriptive, you would give the descriptive a descriptive. And then you would give the descriptive a descriptive, like that. You would start building up a definition of what that thing is. That is the tasawwur. Then you would go through a process of ratification. This process of ratification is going to enable you to arrive at what that specific item is, so that you can now have a conviction, a belief in that thing. Then you go into qiyas. So that is tasdeeq, the how, the whether, and then you go into qiyas. So what you're doing here is from the point of the name, you are expanding, using other names, you are expanding its knowability. So that it's not just a thing, now it is a thing of purpose. Because what qiyas does is it takes you, so this process of understanding, this logical process, takes you from the logos into the ontos and then into the telos. The logos is its outward form and study. The ontos is its nature. Is it this or is it that? Does it do this? Does it do that? How does it do this? Does it do it like this or does it? This is the process of logic. Okay? That's the ontos. It helps you understand its nature. And then the telos helps you understand its purpose. So it goes from just a thing into something, because now you know its name and its dimensions and its this and that and everything, its color, its texture, its all its properties and all that. Then it goes into its so you understand then its nature, for instance. What is this is its nature. That's the, like what we would say, the nature, human nature, the fitra. Okay. Then you've got the telos now. What purpose is it serving? Now it has got purpose. Now it's something more than just a thing. So the purpose is what truly defines what this thing is ultimately destined to become. So it's in the process of this becoming. So there is a be, which is the kun, and then there is the process of becoming, which is the fayakun. Then it reaches its end point, and then it is said to have become something. So in that ayah now, in Surah Baqarah, and this you see now why we brought that in the first place. In that ayah, when the angels are saying, they're giving two distinct elements here. Right? When they say, Ataj'alu fiha, when they asked. So they say, Ma yufsidu fiha wa yafsiku dima'a. So they talked about the lower elements, right? The fasad and then the sifk, the bloodshed and corruption, which are, if they are given prevalence or preference, will lead you to become demonic. So those eventually culminate into demonic qualities. And Ghazali talked about the predatory and the bestial. That's what it is, the fasad and the safk, because the beasts, they just consume and then they end up corrupting the order, the balance. And then the predators, they just attack and are hostile and they destroy and they ruin everything. So that's the bloodshed. Okay? What do those culminate into? They culminate into demonic aspects. That's where you get the jinn now and the shayateen who preceded humankind. And then you get now the humankind and the demons from humankind as well, because that's what they have become. Or the other aspect of becoming is becoming angelic. وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. We glorify you, with praise, and we sanctify you. That's the angelic maqam. So there is only one of two things, because in a world of possibility, after all the other possibilities, the necessities, the impossibilities, when they all get refined, there's only one of two things that ultimately reach the destination. You see, so it's either an affirmation or a negation. It's either right or wrong. It's either evil or good. It's either this or that. That's the finality. So there's one of two things that the being can become now: angelic or demonic, worthy of paradise and the divine presence, or condemned to hellfire. It's one of two possibilities. So the finality of becoming now is, who do you want to become? Now, there's an interesting element here. From the secular realm, okay, from these demonic people, when you now look at their language, not just the semantic form, because the language, the spoken, is reflective of the internal. So when they say, and you will see this in their film and media as well, even in schools, they will do this to children, which is an injustice to children, because it's confounding their worldview. They'll say things like, oh, you can be anything you want to be. You can be whatever you want to be. You see, this is reflective of their worldview, because their worldview is not aligned with divine ordinance. Divine ordinance is not sending you into this realm to become something. You already are a thing. This is the thing. You already are a thing. You are a human being. That's something. You've not been sent here to become something. You've been sent here to become someone. Someone who is praiseworthy or someone who is blameworthy. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately then says, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna. Right? O you soul, you person, you individual, who is al-mutma'inna, is in this state of tranquility, right? This is who you want to be. Who you want to be. You want to be this person. But they say you can be anything you want to be. You can be whatever you want to be. You don't want to be a what. You don't want to be a thing. You already are a what. We know what you are. You already are a thing. In this process of becoming, you want to become someone. So this is what's reflective. When they say this, it's reflective of their inner state. It's reflective of their philosophies. It's reflective of their worldview, because now this is how because they view the world like this, they view reality like this, they cultivate reality like this. This is why we say, don't align yourself with their thinking. Don't align yourself with their speech. Recognize their speech, because their speech will tell you who they are and in which process of becoming they are in. They're not in the process of becoming angelic, because they are thinking only in the limitations of materiality. They are only thinking of matter, of thing, of goods, of property, right? So in their language, which has now mapped their neural network, which hence has determined their intellection, the meaning of reality is what? We discussed this. Is what? Is material. Is material reality only. No, you want haqiqah. This is why if you align yourself, when you think in the Arabic language, and you align yourself now to the meaning and essence of the Quran, your thinking will change. Your neural pathways will change. Your intellection will change. You'll be thinking on a higher level of intellection. As he says, Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyan la'allakum ta'akilun. We have sent this down as an Arabic Quran so that you can intellect, so you can really think on a higher level, which is adnahu taraka dunya. It's detached from this causal world of materiality. You see? So, what I want to look at, inshallah, that was just an introduction. What I want to look at, inshallah, is there are 5 stages now that the human being goes through insofar as his existence is concerned. 5 stages that we know of that the human being goes through. So there is the pre-worldly stage where you go through the process of nothing into something. So there's a process from between these 2 points or these 2 markers. Nothing into something. This is a state of existence that you are in. You go through this process. Of course, you don't remember it. This is why the Quran has been sent down as a dhikr. So everything that I'm telling you right now is in the Quran, and I'm going to give you the ayat with which you're going to reference and contemplate on to understand, because your understanding is going to help you remember that. This is the Quran as a dhikr. It's helping you remember all those things. So that's the first stage. Then there is the second stage, which is now the becoming from something to someone. This is the stage of becoming. And then there is the third stage, which is the stage of now a transition between becoming and then being prepared for a return. So there's this cycle that you're going through. Now, I'm doing this linearly just to give you an idea of what comes after what, but really it's cyclical. So there is a return now. There's a raja, to go back into the divine presence as now someone. An-nafsul mutma'inna, an-nafsul lawama, or an-nafsul ammara. And there are other states in between, but these are generally the 3 different states that you could be in. You are either praiseworthy, you are somewhere in between, or you are blameworthy. Okay? So now you come back to Allah, and this is what we would call now the resurrection. You are being brought back. Ba'atha, or Yawmul Ba'ath, the day or age of resurrection. Ba'atha means to send back. So he takes you upon death, he takes you, your soul, which is you. He takes you, and then on Yawmul Ba'ath, he sends you back into existence. So he's taking you out. And here's the thing. Don't think that it is always that you are existent throughout. In between these interims, you are going in and out of existence. He takes you from existence, he brings you back into existence. He takes you from existence. So you're always going through these cycles. Okay, now that's a much more complicated subject. So not our topic of discussion today. And then that's the cycle of death into resurrection. And then there is the cycle that is from resurrection into eternity. So these are the 5 stages that we know comprehensively. Now, we're not going to talk about eternity today. We're going to talk about it in the session when we talk about time, because that, like I said, it's difficult to comprehend that. So when we talk about time, it will make a little more sense. So let's look at this first stage of your existence. And this is what we would call the pre-worldly stage, meaning before you were brought into this life. And this is why now we say, because there is this stage of existence before this state of existence, There are two elements here. There is the overall purpose of you, the individual, that is going through all these stages to that final moment when you are declared to be either here or here, in this camp or that camp. This whole purpose is different from each of the purposes defined in each of these stages. So there's a purpose that was fulfilled in this pre-worldly stage. Then there's a purpose to be fulfilled in this worldly stage. Then there's a purpose to be fulfilled in the deathly stage. And then a purpose to be fulfilled in the resurrected stage. And then there's a purpose to be fulfilled in the eternal stage. Each of these has a purpose. And this is why we say it's important to distinguish between your purpose of being and your purpose of life. Because your purpose of being is a collective of all these stages until you reach that maqam upon return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He sends you with a purpose and tells you you have to go through all this and you reach that point. And then there is a purpose in each of these stages. So in this life now, in this moment, as we are dhahiri and we are hadir, we are present and we are manifests, there is a purpose of life. So we're going to look at that when we look at birth, that stage. In this pre-worldly stage, you'll find the ayah in Surah Al-A'raf, ayah number 172. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something. وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَأَشْهَدَهُمْ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ. So remember now, is what he's saying. When your Lord collected all the progeny of Banu Adam and from all of his descendants, so all of mankind, the entire species was gathered. Were you gathered in your physical form? No. This was before you were brought in one by one. So all of us, insofar as our creation is concerned, not our birth and life is concerned, insofar as our creation is concerned, all of us were created beforehand, together, and kept somewhere. And then one by one, as and when He ordained us, each one of us, one by one, we were sent into this world with a certain designation, right? A certain destination in time. When we talk about time, you'll understand what that phrase means, destination in time. A certain designation, a certain location in space. You see? So all that was now done as and when He wants it to be done. So you have to recognize here that you being born in this time, in this space, in this family, in this tribe, in this culture, in this nation, in this, everything has been calculated precisely with a reason. That, when you start contemplating that, it enables you to understand your purpose of life. But we'll talk about that later on, in a short while. Here now, all of us have been created. So we are not yet, we were brought from existence, from non-existence, into existence as nothing. Each one of us. That's the kun, and the fayakun continues onwards. Then we became something with purpose, with form, with substance, with essence. In that state of something now, that marker is where He asked us a question. وَأَشْهَدَهُمْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. And remember, we spoke about the word mushahada. This is what it is. Mushahada. It's not in the bodily aspects of witnessing your Lord with His eyes. It is the heart that witnesses. And Ghazali said about the nafs, not the nafs, the ethereal body, that this is the heart when it intellects with the inner eye. So this is what is being referred to here now, the pure side. So so you're you're conscious, you're well aware, and you understand what it is. And because there are no causal, effectual matters, you're not in a world of phenomena at that stage. You're not affected by necessities and possibilities and impossibilities. There is no qiyas taking place. There is no reasoning or argumentation here to take place. You're in that state whereby it's pure truth, because in the divine presence, it is pure truth. So everything in that moment is. And this is part of you understanding what is to be when a thing is. What is it? You see? So everything is the way it is. There is no, maybe it's like that, or maybe there are no possibilities. That's what I'm trying to say. So in that state, then you are made to bear testimony, pure witnessing, the divine presence. Alastu bi rabbikum? Am I not your Lord? Now, that's where the interesting matter lies. Really, if you think about it, he is asking you a question to affirm or negate. Can you negate? Now, he knows that you cannot negate, because in that state of existence, there are no possibilities, or it's possible that it isn't, or maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. Let's examine this. There's no, all that doesn't take place in that state of existence. That only takes place in this realm, not in that realm, which is why in this realm, you have been given the kalima that includes a negation and an affirmation. La ilaha, there is no ilah, so you're negating, illallah, except Allah. Then you're affirming, because that's the nature of this world. It's this way or that way. It's causes and effects. It's subjectives and objectives. But in that pre-worldly stage, you're not affected by that. And yet he's asking you this question, Alastu bi rabbikum? In other words, can you truly deny it? You can't. And this is why we say that it is fitrah to believe in God. It is human nature to believe in God. Whatever an atheist might concoct as an argument that he thinks is logic, that he includes his suppositions, that all this and all that, and I don't know any of this, whatever they might come up with. Human nature, if they filter all that nonsense out, human nature has to believe in God. And it is in that moment whereby everything else does not matter. That moment, the heart doesn't want to know anything. It wants to know its Lord. But then the moment passes. Some of them, some people, when that moment happens, when these kinds of experiences take place, or they do come to a realization, and they have to accept it. And they accept religion. Other people, the moment passes, they go back into a state of a khafla. Anyway. But so in this moment now, it is you in the divine presence in a state of mushahada. Alastu bi rabbikum bala shahidna. We affirm testimony. And so then he's giving you something else now. He's making a statement to that. So in this pre-worldly stage, he's asked you this question. Then he's saying, An taqulu yawm al-qiyamati. In other words, now, because you've gone from nothing to something, and then from this something now, you're going to enter this pre-worldly stage up until you arrive Yawm al-Qiyamah. So this is the marker. And then this is the marker. The process of you becoming someone starts from here. You're something. This is what you begin with. You arrive here to become someone. So, An taqulu Yawm al-Qiyamati, on the day that I then erect you, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of erection, of qiyam, of making or gathering everyone ready for judgment, which is why it's called the day of judgment. You have been summoned now. When you go to court, those of you who've been to court, you'll be sitting waiting, right? Your lawyer may be doing his paperwork, whatever, you're fidgeting. And then the judge enters the chambers and the announcement is made. Rise for Judge so-and-so. Everybody stands up. That is qiyam. In the presence of the judge, you stand up, you are ready to be judged. Or you make your case, you are ready to make your case. So that's qiyam. So day of judgment. Lest you say on that day of judgment, Inna kunna an hadha, that about this we were ghafilin, we were heedless, we didn't know, we didn't realize this. What are you talking about? You can't say that on that day. Because on that day, all the veils are lifted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Qaf, لَقَدْ كُنْتَ فِي غَفْلَةٍ مِنْ هَذَا. You are in a state of heedlessness about this. Right? غَافِلِينَ إِنَّا كُنَّا غَافِلِينَ إِنَّا كُنَّا عَنْ هَذَا غَافِلِينَ. So here, he's telling you, لقد كنت في غفلة من هذا. You are in غفلة about this. فكشفنا عنك غطاءك. So now the kashf has taken place. The veil has been lifted. We have removed this veil from you. Which veil is this? It's the veil of life. Because this realm is a veil. And here's the thing. The soul is a veil on the heart. And the body is an added veil. So all these are veils. And then these veils have more veils. So if your perception is going outward, you're going into more and more cover. More and more darkness. The light is inside. And we're going to talk about this light, this misbah. When Allah says, Allahu nuru samawati wal ard, how do you arrive at that nur? We're going to talk about that. But the light is internal. You're going external. You're going into darkness. But now all these veils have been lifted. The senses are a veil. The body is a veil. The soul is a veil. Every other thing, these are all veils. Now the veils will be lifted so that you're back in that state. That state of ethereal substance or essence that you were in that, when he asked you that question, Alastu bi rabbikum? Bala shahidna. Very well, you have testified. Lest now you say on Yawmul Qiyamah that we were ghafla about this, we didn't know. What are you? I don't remember saying this. Now he's telling you that the veil is going to be lifted. All these worldly veils will be lifted. You will be back in that state. There is no way you can negate it. فَبَصَرُكَ الْيَوْمُ الْحَدِيدِ. Your gaze is piercing like iron. It is sharp. Your gaze is now sharp. Full clarity. Full clarity. You cannot deny it now. So on that day now, this entire process of becoming is meant to delude you. Why? Why is it meant to delude you? Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala subject you to that? This is now what we want to look at. Because He has fashioned the being in this will, in this consciousness, and put it in the heart with the intellect, and then He has put this heart in the soul. But the nature of the soul that He has created has got these two aspects. And these two aspects will lead the being, the heart, to either incline towards this or that. If he inclines towards this, he becomes angelic. And if he inclines towards this, he becomes demonic. Either way now, it is the heart that will be questioned. What did you do? Why did you go in that manner? Why is that? See, there's something interesting here in our theology, in our Aqidah, in comparison to other dispensations. We believe in a complete resurrection, not just a spiritual resurrection. We believe in body and soul, and ergo soul and heart. So the body decays, the soul is taken to him. Now it is you who is in this interim mode, in the in-between, a purgatoric state of being, okay? Upon resurrection, the body is rebuilt for you. And this reconstruction is from that seed, the most base element, which some ulama say is the tailbone. Okay, it's this seed. And we don't have time to talk about that particular piece, but inshallah, we'll do another lecture on that. It's a very interesting thing to know, to understand. So the body is going to be rebuilt, but it's not the same body that has a limited lifespan. Now, this is where the immortality comes in. See, immortality doesn't come in this world. Immortality comes in the next world. So the immortality is in relation to the physicality of the being. And then the eternity is in relation to the metaphysicality of the being. So now the body is recreated in order to endure and not be limited. And then the soul is breathed back into the body and the being is brought back into existence. Right? So now all the limitations that you had insofar as your ability to see, for instance, to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which you cannot do in this state, you will be able to do it in that state. And in that state now, you are in a state of pure witnessing once again. So that now, what you made mention at that time, that affirmation, now you are held to task for that. Didn't you affirm that I am your Lord? Yes, I did. I cannot deny it now. Because everything has been lifted. They are not delusions. This world is a world of delusion. إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا مَا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ زِينَةً لَهَا لِنَبْلُوَهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. We have placed everything in this ard as a zina, as a decorative, as an allurement, right? And he also says, and we looked at that ayah before, in which he said that this worldly life, hayatud dunya, is what? It's ghurur. It's delusional. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. It's a delusion of enjoyment. So now the delusions have now been removed because that's not going to be there on Yawmul Qiyamah. You cannot have delusions in the same field in the divine presence. In the divine presence, you cannot have delusions. It is only truth. There's only truth. There are no possibilities, impossibilities, necessities. Those things don't exist at that time. The delusions are no longer there. So now what are you going to deny? Can you deny? Can you deny? This is the thing. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Woe unto the deniers on that day. Woe unto you. Because you cannot deny on that day. You have to affirm this. You have to affirm that I made this testimony. So he sends mankind into this realm, and he told Adam at that time. So in the same case applies the same principle, because the Quran doesn't speak in particulars, it speaks universally, so that universally it can be applied to every particular. قَالَ اهْبِطُوا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌّ. All of you now descend into this realm, enemies unto each other, man and jinn, but that includes man and man as well. The good are enemies to the bad are enemies to the good. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. And for you now, in the earth is a place of settlement, a place of abode, a manzil, a makan for you to now settle in. And there will also be some enjoyment. It's not fully suffering only. There's some enjoyment that you'll get that will remind you of paradise. That will remind you of that state of bliss that you are in the divine presence. So this is why sleep is so sweet. Food is so satisfying. You see, drink is so satisfying. All these things are reminders of that. قَالَ فِيهَا تَحْيُونَ وَفِيهَا تَمُوتُونَ وَمِنْهَا تُخْرَجُونَ. Here in this realm, in this worldly life, you will live You will die, and then from here now you will be kharaja, tukhrajun, you will be sent back, you will be brought back. You will exit this world. You see? So you will come here, you have to live and you have to die. These are then defined by the sharia that he puts in place. قَالَ اهْبِطَ مِنْهَا جَمِيعًا, all of you go. بَعْدُكُمْ لِبَعْدٍ عَدُونَ فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُمْ مِنِّي هُدًى فَمَنِ اتَّبَعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا يَضِلُّ وَلَا يَشْقَى. So there will come guidance from me. When there comes guidance from me, whoever follows that guidance will not be led astray and will not suffer. So the suffering of this world, the suffering of hence the repercussions of what occurs. Because every decision you make in this realm, in this life now, because you've been brought into a world of possibilities, impossibilities, and necessities, and you have been given intelligence with which to do this firaq. In this intelligence, it has to be guided. So he gives you guidance as well. He tells you, this is the sharia. Follow this. Intelligence now has to make the right decision. But every decision you make will contribute either to your becoming angelic or becoming demonic. It will contribute to that. So long as you follow the guidance is what he's saying and not come up with your own concoctions, you will not go astray. Meaning, he wants you to become angelic. He doesn't want you to become demonic, but he has left it unto you to decide. Because he said, I'm going to create a Khalifa. And a Khalifa is one who is responsible for his actions. So he's given you this will to make a decision. You can choose to do good, or you can capitulate to evil. Evil is not a choice. Wickedness, being bad, is not a choice. It is a capitulation. It's a giving in. You're giving in to evil, capitulation. The choice is to do good. So he's given you the choice to do good, the choice to become angelic. Or you can just give into this realm, be imprisoned by your soul, and I will force you to cleanse yourself. You're going to go through a torment. So the ultimate objective of the being is not heaven or hell. It's not paradise or hellfire. That's not the end objective. You cannot limit yourself into thinking that's the end purpose. No. That's the end destination. As you're going through this journey, you can either end up in this destination or that destination. Either one, the purpose which is now going to be fulfilled at that time, the purpose, if you should want to fulfill it, and we're going to talk about this purpose in the last session, inshallah. When we examine Imam al-Ghazali's now, the next section which I talked about, we're going to talk about the purpose of the heart. Why was it created? When we talk about that there is a divine right that Allah has granted you that He has not granted any other creature. And this right is upon you to fulfill, to claim it. It's your haqq. You should claim it. And this haqq is to be in His presence. That is the end objective, to be in His presence, so that you can glorify Him and sanctify Him. So he says, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي. So whoever turns now from my remembrance. Because remember now. He's saying the guidance will help you remember. Alastu bi rabbikum bala shahidna. The guidance will help you remember. So what is the Quran? The Quran is a dhikr. That's what it does. It reminds you. Plato made the argument that knowledge and things like virtue, these are not things that you can learn from this world. This world does not teach you virtue. It doesn't. It doesn't teach you morals. It doesn't teach you ethics. No one can teach you that. This is an a priori knowledge, he said. It is in you when you come with it. And that's a very valid point of argument from Plato, because the Quran affirms it. Because this is something that Allah has already put in you. He has made you as a good as a good creation. وَالنَّفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا, he has proportioned the self like this, the soul, right? وَالنَّفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا, and he has inspired it فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, with the vice and the righteousness. So the knowledge is in you. The Quran has got many names. It's got 4 names. The Quran, Al-Dhikr, Al-Furqan, and Al-Tanzil. So the 2 that are particular to this is Al-Furqan and Al-Dhikr. Al-Furqan, because it helps you do the firaq between the good and the evil, between truth and falsehood. So his guidance is to help you distinguish the 2, because what did we say? This world includes both. There's truth and falsehood, right and wrong, good and bad, evil and righteousness. So the Furqan helps you distinguish between the 2 so you can make the right choice, because you've been given knowledge of both, but how do you distinguish them? Now, the dhikr is the remembrance. This is what is reminding you of that oath that you took, that your ultimate objective, your end objective, has to be that divine presence. That's your purpose of being. That is your purpose of being. So the dhikr continually reminds you of that oath, of your purpose of being. Remember, you told your Lord this. Remember this. This is what the Quran keeps doing. This is what the revelation does for you. This is what his guidance. So whoever turns away from my remembrance deliberately now, denies it. And by the way, denial can also be done passively, not just actively. You can do a denial passively without realizing that you're putting the Quran aside. You're casting it aside by not engaging with it. By not engaging with guidance, you are denying guidance. You see, this is a problem now. If now you are in this crucible of abstinence and you're just going to sit there, take the physical mushaf and then just glance through the lines with your eyes, that is an insult to the Quran. You are insulting the Quran like that. وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي, so whoever turns away from my guidance now, whoever just puts it aside on the shelf somewhere, whoever just engages with it passively, is not actively engaged with it, doesn't have an intimate connection with it, whoever does that, فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. That person is going to have a very difficult life. This worldly life is going to be very difficult. He's going to be very depressed in this life. And on Yawm al-Qiyamah, he's going to be raised as blind. Blind how? Physically blind? No. Spiritually blind. I can't see the divine presence. That's how you will be resurrected on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And so he will say, Qala, he will say, Rabbi, lima hashartani a'ma? Why did you raise me when I'm as blind? وَقَدْ كُنْتُ بَصِيرًا, and I was able to see. And that's when he will be told, no. You didn't see. You are not seeing. You are looking at everything physical and material, but you aren't seeing me. You aren't seeing my presence. You aren't engaging with me there. You are engaging with everything else. So Allah will say to him, قَالَ كَذَلِكَ أَتَتْكَ آيَاتُنَا فَنَسِيتَهَا. When our signs came to you, when I gave you my signs, you didn't pay any attention to them. You disregarded them. You forgot. I I gave you the dhikr, but you didn't remember what you had made a covenant with me. وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. And so likewise, on this day, you will be forgotten. You didn't remember me when I told you, Alastu bi Rabbikum, you testified, and then you forgot all about me. So you didn't make any mention of me, you are engaged with everything else. So on this day, why should I remember you? If you didn't make me a priority in your life, how can I make you a priority? How can I make you a priority with me on this day when in your life I was just an option? This is what's being said to you on that day. How can God make you a priority when in your life He was just an option? He's just an option. You can choose to worship Him or not. You can decide to serve Him or not. You can make the choice between, should I spend time studying the Quran or should I go take a course in real estate? Which is more beneficial for me? Should I spend 6 months learning the Arabic language so that I can understand the speech of Allah? Or should I go and do a course in computer technology? Where is your priority? Where are your priorities? Because that's probably going to get you a job. Or the real estate market is booming right now. I can make a lot of money. I should tap into that. Where are your priorities? You're making God an option in your life and you want Him to make you a priority? How does that work? That's what's being said here. You'll be raised blind. You won't see my presence. You won't witness my divinity. Why should I make you a priority when in your life I was just an option? Think about this now. Reflect on this. This is why you are here. This is your purpose of life. It is to remember. Alastu bi Rabbikum bala shahidna. It's to remember. Remember that. Because your time is temporal. It's going to come to an end. Ilahin, for a period of time. And then it's going to end. What are you going to do then? Now when death is staring you in the face, now we come to that other portion now. The third stage of your existence. وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ. And then comes now Sakratul Maut. Why is he saying Sakratul Maut? Why isn't he saying just Maut? And it comes with truth. ذَلِكَ مَا كُنْتَ مِنْهُ تَحِيدٌ. This is what you were trying to avoid. You thought you will live forever. You thought you were going to continue onwards. You didn't think that your life is going to end here, did you? I mean, you had an inkling, but you always kept putting it aside. Let me not think about death. It's depressing. Let's not talk about that. It's depressing. I don't want to think about that. Why weren't you reminding yourself that your time is limited and you're running out of time? Why is he saying Sakratul Maut? Now, you all know what Sakratul Maut is, right? When you've experienced maybe someone in your family, someone you know who is now passing away, and someone who is aware of that, they understand that. They'll tell you like, okay, the individual is now in Sakratul Maut, which means they are seeing the angel of death. What is Sakratul Maut? The word Sakara actually means intoxication, right? It means intoxication. Now, how does intoxication work? There's a very interesting similitude here. Intoxication, what intoxication does when you take in that substance, whatever it is, alcohol or marijuana or cocaine, heroin, anything, whatever the substance is, each one will have a different effect. But they all have the same algorithm, so to speak. What they do is they put your body in a state where the soul is desynchronized with the body. So that's what sakarat is. Sakara is a desynchronization between the soul and the body. There is a detachment taking place now. That detachment puts you in a certain state. And in between, you are still Zahir, but you're partially there, you're in and out. That's what you're in and out, okay? So Sakaratul Maut is this interim period between Hayat and Maut. It's an in-between state of existence. So throughout your being, you go through states of existence. And then in this worldly life, you also go through states of existence. So sleep is a state of existence. Consciousness is a state of existence. Unconsciousness is a state of existence. Subconsciousness, state of existence. All these are states of existence. So Sakarat, which is now your Sa'a, that's your hour. So you've got As-Sa'atul Kubra and As-Sa'atul Sughra. Sa'atul Kubra is all of humanity now coming to its finality. Sa'atul Sughra is you now coming to your finality. So Sakarat is now that transition between your Hayat and your Maut. And so you are now you're starting to be detached. Little by little, the soul is being pulled out of the body. It's a very painful experience. That's why it's called Sakarat. In that moment, you can see or experience both realities now. Because now you're able to see the angel of death on this side of death. Because the soul now is seeing this world. But then it's partially seeing the body as well. So it's still attached to the senses. So partially it is gaining all these information. You can see the people who are surrounding your bed. You can hear a little bit of what they're saying. There are a lot of things that you're still, getting a vague image taking place here, but you're also seeing this. And the more the soul is pulled out, the less of this realm you are connected with, and the more now you are in this other realm. You're being drawn into this other realm now until you're completely disconnected from that. In that moment, we say, when I talked about the meaning of life, that is when the meaning of life is unveiled. That is the moment now. Because now you are seeing both realities. And now suddenly the heart has now realized, I have been deluded. I was deluded all this time. You are in a state of ghafla. You have to remove yourself from a state of ghafla so that when that moment occurs, you are not taken by surprise. Oh my goodness, what have I done? I forgot all about this. I forgot I was supposed to do this. You don't want to be like that. Like your timeline has now expired. You're now in this moment. When you are brought into this realm, your heart, as soon as it experienced physical reality, from that moment, it has been deluded by physical reality. Because everything is a zina. Everything is an allurement. It's delusion, a ghurur. So your heart has been in a state of delusion all this time. The remembrance and the guidance is meant to remind you, don't lose yourself in the delusion. The only way you experience true reality is in that other realm, not in this realm. In this realm, you only experience physical material reality. It is not reality itself. It is only realistic. Okay? Why is it only realistic? Because everything in this world has a representation, is just a representation of what it really is. One of the poets said, إِنَّمَا الْكَوْنُ مَعَانِي قَائِمَةٌ بِالصُّوَرِ. Everything in the world has been erected as form that's representing meaning, or rather, everything in this world is meaning in its reality that has been erected as form. You see, it's all realistic. Every object has a contingent representation to something that is the real. So don't get caught up in the delusion. You have to improve yourself in intellection so that the better you intellect, the better your heart understands. And the better your heart realizes. That's the adrak. And we're going to look at this word in a short while. He's going to mention it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions it. That's the adrak. To realize that this is not real. This is only realistic. Kullu man yudriku hadha. That's what the second line of that of that poem. Kullu man yudriku hadha. Whoever realizes this, kana min ahli al-ibar, is from the people of ibar, of discernment. Meaning they are now connected to alam al-amr, which is ibaratun. As Ghazali says, alam al-amr is the ibara, is the realm which helps you understand those things that are qualitative, those things that are real, not just the realistic. So, in this state of sakarat, you are in an in-between. You're moving here, then you're going back. So you're being pulled slowly, you're being pulled out. And while this is happening, you're now realizing, that I'm actually going back to the real. This has all been fake. This has been a delusion. Now that meaning of life has been unveiled for you. But al-an, isn't that what Fir'aun was asked? When he was now drowning, he said, oh, now I believe in the God of the Israelites. Accept me now. Al-an, now Pharaoh, وَقَدْ عَصَيْتَ قَبْلِ. Before this, you are in denial. Now, it's too late, brother. It's too late, my friend. Your term is over. You should have realized this a long time ago. You should have realized the meaning of your life a long time ago. Why were you sent into this world? Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. You were sent here to be a khalifa. To establish state governance? No. To be responsible. And how are you responsible? How do you achieve responsibility? When you make yourself mature, when you attain maturity, spiritual maturity, mental maturity, not bodily maturity only. You say an individual should be responsible and mature adult, right? Mental maturity as well. You cannot be childish. Children are on base level. They are shahwa and ghada. They want to consume. I want this toy, I want that. And if they don't get, tantrums. They can't control themselves. But a mature person controls themselves. This is the point. Control yourself, your nafs, controlling. Then you are considered responsible. If you make a mistake, you are responsible. You are truthful. You are honest. You are kind. In that surah, how many people did this? That homework that I gave you. How many people, or you have not yet finished? Finish this. Let me give you a bit of a background here. So وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. Allah takes an oath by the morning brightness and then the night. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Lord has not forsaken you. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. The akhirah is better than the first. The other. And akhirah here doesn't only mean the hereafter, in the sense that, because see, again, this is what I meant. Don't think in the same capacity as physicality. Don't think as a reductionist. Okay? So akhirah, when we say hereafter, we're talking about it's still here, it's just the other. Akhirah or ukhra also means the other. So that other world where you have come from, where you will return to, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is better than this one, this first one that you're looking at. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْتِكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. Your Lord will give you. He will sustain you. He will provide you, and you will be satisfied. You will be satisfied because what He will give you is everlasting. It's eternal. How will you achieve that? By being the Khalifa. How will you be the Khalifa? أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُ عَيْنَيْنِ وَلِسَانًا وَشَفَتَيْنِ وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ فَلَاقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةَ فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ أَوْ إِطْعَامٌ فِي يَوْمٍ ذِي مَسْغَبَةٍ. He's given you two eyes, a tongue and two lips. He's shown you two ways. Are you going to take the steep path? Are you going to take the more difficult path? Because the difficult path is what leads to Him. That difficult path is what will rid you of these lower elements. It will shed off these base elements. How do you become the Khalifa? By becoming this mature, responsible individual, by developing this kindness, by developing humility. Because Iblis was proud, he was arrogant. He cannot be given entrance into paradise, into the divine presence. If you are humble, you may be. If you are righteous, you will be. How do you develop that? That's where the answer comes in that same surah of Wadduha. And so he says, Alam yajidka yatiman fa'awa. Did your Lord not find you an orphan and he gave you refuge? He gave you shelter? وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. And then He found you lost and He guided you. He's speaking to the Prophet ﷺ because the Prophet was going in the cave of Hira. He was looking for Allah. Who else was he looking for? He was looking for Allah, and then He guided him. Allah guided him. وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. And He found you poor. You didn't have anything. And then He gave you something that would sustain you. He made you self-sufficient. So what should you do then to become the Khalifa He wants you to become? فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ. As for the one who is an orphan, فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. Don't oppress him. Don't look down on people. Be kind to people. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. And one who asks you, don't deprive them, don't deny them, don't reject them. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. And as for the favor of your Lord, tell everyone, spread the word, enjoin others, bring them into the fold. This is how you become the Khalifa. This is how you become the Khalifa. So when you now listen to this surah later on, I just give you a translation, okay? Doesn't really work. When you listen to the surah, now listen to it with that meaning now. Understand the meaning and then listen to the recitation. That recitation should touch your heart. It will make you smile, as I said. I guarantee it. It will make you smile. It's making me smile because I understand it. The translation doesn't do it justice. But it's just pleasing to me, and I can't describe that feeling. I cannot describe what it is. Just understand that whenever I recite this surah, I feel this tranquility on me. So that's your moment of sakarat. Now it has come to you. Now there is death. فَلَوْلَا إِذَا بَلَغَتِ الْحُلْقُومِ. So why is it that now when the soul has reached your throat, it's being pulled out of the body? So the feet usually go cold first, right? And then the rest of the torso and the body and the hands, and then it reaches the throat. Typically, you'll find the same symptoms when you sleep. Your feet will get cold because the soul is departing. But it's not departing entirely. There is still a connection As the ulama say, it is still attached to the body, like there's a string that still connects it to the body. So there's still a connection. So the soul now is reached here on the throat. So why is it? وَأَنْتُمْ حِينَئِذٍ تَنْظُرُونَ. And now, at this moment now, you are now seeing the other world now. You're looking on now. How is it? وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْكُمْ. And we are now, our angels are closest to you than you are to the body. The angels are closer to you than you are. The body is a distant thing. You can no longer hold on to it. The angels are closer to you. Yani we are, nahnu. Wa nahnu meaning the majestic we. The angels are also there. وَلَكِنْ لَا تُبْصِرُونَ. But you cannot even see. You can't see now this other realm. We are closest to you in that moment. You're now connected to this other side. فَلَوْلَا. So why in kuntum غَيْرَ مَدِينِينَ? Why don't you not, if you think that you are able to, if you think that you are in control of it, why don't you come back? Why don't you bring yourself back? Why don't you prevent it? Can you deny it at that moment? Why don't you deny it now? You were denying it before. You were ignorant about it before. That denial, by the way, includes being heedless of it. Being heedless is a form of denial. Being ignorant is a form of denial. And you cannot use any of those as excuses. Oh, I didn't know. There is no, oh, I didn't know on Yawmul Qiyamah. There is no, oh, I wasn't aware. Oh, Mufti didn't tell me. Oh, Maulana at the mosque did not mention it. There's no such thing. The Quran was not revealed to you via Maulana or Mufti or whoever. It was revealed to you, but you are the one who didn't go to it. There is no, oh, nobody told me. He then says in Surah Al-Mu'minun, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَ أَحَدَهُمُ الْمَوْتِ. Such that until when death comes to one of them, this is an allegory, قَالَ, he says, رَبِّ ارْجِعُونَ. Send me back, my Lord. Send me back, please. Now you've come to realize, oh, I was supposed to do this and this. No, give me one more chance. Let me go back. Now you're realizing that. Send me back. لَعَلِّي أَعْمَلُ صَالِحًا فِيمَا تَرَكْتُ. Send me back so that I can do righteousness now in that which I have left behind. That life. Let me go back and do it now. No. There is no way now. إِنَّهَا كَلِمَةٌ هُوَ قَائِلُهَا. It's only, these are just empty words. There is no going back. These are just useless, empty words that have got no impact. وَمِن وَرَائِهِمْ بَرْزَخٌ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. Now there is a barrier, there is a breach, there is a barzakh behind him now. There is no going back until the day he is resurrected or they are resurrected. He says in Surah Al-Imran now, Ali Imran, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. And everyone knows this ayah. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every soul shall taste death. Every soul. وَإِنَّمَا تُوَفَّوْنَا أُجُورَكُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. And on Yawm al-Qiyamah, you will be given your full compensation. If you did right, you will be compensated with reward. If you did wrong, you will be compensated with your punishment. So that eternal, that bliss, that contentment that the heart is looking for, that contentment, as Imam al-Ghazali says, the sa'ada and the shaqa both follow the heart. If the heart does right, it will get this sa'ada, this eternal contentment. that it is looking for, it is yearning for, that it cannot find in these material things because these material things are temporal. The heart is looking for that eternity because it knows it is there in your heart as an understanding. You know that that is what you are created to be, an eternal being, not a temporal being. This is why we say also that Adam and Hawa were not enticed by the immortality and the kingdom that never decays. Why is Allah mentioning them? Because He is showing you here that these are the Iblis's tricks. These are his philosophies. This is what he tries to entice you with. If you are deluded, if you do not understand your true purpose, if you don't understand who you are, by virtue of which you understand Allah created you eternal, and that this life is just temporal, and that there will be an akhirah, and you will be returned to Him. If you don't understand that, and when we say understand, it is an i'tiqad. It's not just the rational elements, because you can have an outward understanding, a tasawwur sadij, and just a naive perception, a grasping of things. It's a rational thing. That rationality has to transcend and penetrate the heart. It has to transcend rationality and penetrate the heart. That is i'tiqad. It has to enter the heart. That sort of understanding that there is going to be an eternity. So you don't get enticed by it. You don't get deluded by these things. Because these things are the finality, are the culmination of everything that comes from the godless world. Everything, including their devices, including all the computers and the phones and the technology and the this and that, all of it is coming from that godless world. Now, I'm not a Luddite, okay? I'm not saying technology is the bad thing. The bad thing is not the technology, it's not the thing itself. It is you and your self-control. You don't realize that these are instruments. You think that this is your indulgence. And so you get so preoccupied with it that your time gets wasted. And then you have no time to spend in proper intellection, in connecting with the book of Allah, in learning the requisite knowledges and sciences that help you understand the speech of Allah. Who are you going to blame at that point? Because we all use technology, and we are in this phase of human existence. This is the eschatological age. This is the end game. These are the latter days. This is what our Prophet prophesied about. You want to accept that or deny it, that's up to you. This is our position. We accept it. So it is part and parcel of the age. And there is an element of technique here that has to be identified, that where there is technique, then this is the paradigm shift that is ultimately followed by. So yeah, you can't do anything without these instruments. You can't. People, as far as your workability is concerned, your life is concerned, as far as the necessity aspects, and this is what we are talking about, is to refine yourself so that you have higher intellection over your base elements. So your base elements don't control you, which is the heart. It's your intellection that enables you to make the right decision, to recognize, okay, this device I need to use it for A, B, C, D purpose. And you have to be truthful with yourself. Don't lie to yourself to delude yourself. Oh, I'll just use it for this much. And then you sit doing other things on it. No, I'm going to use it for A, B, C, D purpose, and that's it. It's going to fulfill its purpose as an instrument. But you're going to sit there doing your whatever and your TikTok dancing and all these things because these are your preoccupations now. How and when are you going to connect with your Lord? And if you don't cultivate your akhirah now, when are you going to do it? Because that moment of death, it can come tomorrow. It can come in the next 1 hour. When are you going to do it? So on that day, you will be given your full compensation. Whatever it is you preoccupied with, you preoccupied yourself with, that is what is going to be given to you. فَمَنْ زُحْزِهَا عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ. So whoever is then saved from the fire and then is allowed to enter paradise, that person has succeeded, has attained, has achieved it, has become what he was created to become. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. What else is this worldly life but a taste, an enjoyment of delusion? That's what it is. Are you going to preoccupy yourself with all these then? Then, and this is a broad topic, so we could talk for long about this, but we want to move on now to the next stage, which is the stage of resurrection. Now, in this stage, you have to understand something. I don't want to talk about what's going to happen and the different things that have been highlighted in the Quran, because that's a vast topic, right? And it is, in our sciences, it is called Ilmul Ma'ad. And it's one of the 7 themes of the Quran. So in the Quran, you've got 7 themes. You've got Ilmul Rububiyyah, you've got Ilmul Nubuwah, you've got Ilmul Ahkam, Ilmul Wa'd, Ilmul Wa'id, Ilmul Qasas, and then Ilmul Ma'ad. So these are central themes of the Quran. So in itself, it's a very vast subject. What I want to talk about in reference to you and us, you and I, is that now, see, so we understand now that you have a will, and this will has been given certain parameters, okay? When we talk about free will, this is the problem now because it's a philosophical discussion, and it's a problem because the language in which is being philosophized is the English language. So you have to make a distinction when it comes to such matters where there is ambiguity. There is such a thing as free will and a will that is free. Okay? So, a will that is free implies that the will is inherently free. There are no constraints, there are no boundaries, there are no attachments. That is the satanic definition of the will. Do what thou will, because the will is free. That's not the Quranic definition. The Quranic definition is that the will can become free. Not that it is inherently free. It can become free. And this is denoted by freedom in Islam. In this life and in your existence, you are always a slave. You are created as a slave. In your existence. Your existence is an existence of servitude. Illa liya'budun. Now you can serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you can serve anything else. That is the shirk. Min dunillah. From other than Allah. So you can serve your shahwa by just taking and getting and pursuing that which you desire. And in terms of pursuing that which you desire, the will is also executed in that accord. So for instance, if you desire that iPhone, new one, I don't know which one model has come out now, 14 or 15 or I don't know, 16. You desire that, probably costs a few hundred dollars or $1,000, I don't know. You desire that, okay? It's not just a desire. It's the fact that now your will is executed in pursuit of that desire. So you work to achieve money, to gain money so that you can buy that device. In which case your work now, your heart is now focused on the work. Because its objective now is to make the money in order to pursue that desire. That's what we're talking about. That's your desire making the decision for you. Your intellect, on the other hand, is going to beg you. Because insofar as logic is concerned, do you really need it? That's the first question asked. Is it a requirement? Can you get away with it? Can you live without it? If you allow proper intellection, then those sort of questions will be raised. Then your heart is going to make a decision between the two. If your heart is qalbun salim, means it's not diseased, right? There are no blemishes on the heart, like greed. Greed is a blemish, is a disease. So greed will favor the desire. So if there's greed in your heart, then your heart will ignore the intellection and it will accept the whims of the shahwa. So what's happened now? Because the being is in the heart and the heart has accepted the shahwa and not intellection, proper reason, the being is now enslaved to the shahwa, is servient now to the shahwa. The same case applies to the ghadab. The same case applies to everything else. When you become Muslim, your Islam is not just giving the shahada and the salah and all those things. Your Islam is foremost submitting your will, which is in your heart, and hence submitting your heart, your will to the will of Allah. So when Allah says do this, then the will does that. When Allah says don't do this, the will does not do that. The will does not question that. When Allah says do this and the will says, oh, what if I do it later? Or what if I don't do it? Or that's not what the will does. That's not submission. When you submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does that make you? It makes you Abdullah. It makes you a slave of Allah. And the Arabs used to say, Al-hurru abdun ma tama' wal-abdu hurrum ma qana'. The free man is a slave so long as he's greedy. So you could be free in terms of the social order, but you are covetous, you're greedy, you want things. You're always in pursuit of that. Hence, you are a slave. Why? You are a slave to your whims and desires, to the worldly affiliates. A smoker is a slave to the cigarette. Yeah, you're a slave. Your will is overpowered by that temptation. That's what it is. If you're addicted to anything, whatever you're addicted to, you're addicted to Facebook. Yeah? People are addicted to social media. People are addicted to television. Whatever your inclinations are, you are a slave to that. If you cannot override the urge to indulge in it, you are a slave to it. Because a slave cannot override the will of the master. If you override the will of the master, you are the master, it is the slave. Question, can you override the will of Allah? You can't. You can disobey, but the will of Allah will be fulfilled. This is why He constantly reminds you, you are going to die, you are going to be returned to me, then I will question you. You think you're going to get away with it? You're not going to get away with it. You see? So the idea here, and so the slave is free. So you might be in the social order, you're a slave, but inherently as a being, you are free so long as you are not covetous, so long as you're not desired, so long as you're not affiliated to any of these inclinations. So when you become Muslim, ergo you submit your will to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you become Abdullah, the slave of Allah. Which means what? It frees you from everything else. Because your will and your heart now only submit to one and not a multitude of others. That is true freedom. Because true freedom is in allowing the nature of the thing to do what its nature entails. So your fitrah has an inclination to God. That's your true nature. If you allow that inclination, then you are in fulfillment of your freedom. That is a will that can become free. That is free will in Islam. Not what they're talking about. So if there is free will, which means my decisions are impacted, which means if everything Allah has ordained, that means nothing is certain. That's all nonsensical thinking. It falls under determinism and all these other philosophies. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. A man came to Imam Ali and asked him, explain to me what is free will? What is the qudra? What is Allah's power? He said, put your leg up. Put one leg up. So the man lifted one leg up. And then Imam Ali told him, lift the other leg up without putting the other one down. And he said, I can't. He said, your will is in between that. There are certain things that you can do and certain things you can't do. So the will of the human being is within a set of parameters. This will, it doesn't have free reign. So it's not a free will. You understand? That's what they say it is, a free will. A free will in terms of the adjective coming before the noun in this case. A free will. It's like saying a red apple. The apple can only be red in that case. So a free will means that the will can only be free in that case. That's not how the construct is. The construct, the true construct as per our tradition, as per the religion, as per revelation, is that the will has certain freedom, certain boundaries. So as Allah says, وَمَتَعٌ, there is some enjoyment. So there's some freedom, but not complete freedom. There are still parameters, there are still limitations. You have to abide by those parameters and limitations. In this world then, in this case, that will has a choice. It is, you can choose to incline yourself to the will of Allah or choose to incline yourself to your whims and desires. That is the choice between good and evil. Capitulation to evil or choosing to do good. You understand? Khayyara yukhayyiru. If you look at the morphology of the word, khayyara yukhayyiru is to choose to do good. It's not to reject to do good. That's the choice of good, of doing good. Evil is the capitulation. You give in to evil. So your will, which is in your heart, and the being now is guided by his will. And we'll talk more about this in detail when we come to the other hadith that I want to do later on, inshallah, which is the hadith of innamal a'malu binniyat. Actions are contingent on the intentions, right? So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later on. But there's a reason why I'm raising this point about the will. In this world then you have been given certain parameters and you've been allowed to make certain choices and certain decisions as to who you want to become. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted, he could have just made you like that, the way you want, the way he wants. And that would be the end of it. But he's not doing that. And this is his mercy upon you. It is a ni'mah upon you. And this is what we said, and Ghazali will explain this later on when we look at that section. This is your haqq. It's a right that he has given you in fulfillment of that ni'mah. Okay? So he's given you this because it's upon you to decide now. Not every creature has been given this ability to decide. Imagine if this ability was taken away from you right now. Right now, if this ability was taken away from you, you would not be able to decide what to do, when to do, how to do, why to do it. What would that make you? And yet you're consciously aware that you cannot do anything. It would make you a complete prisoner, wouldn't it? Yet you're not that. That's not what you are. That's what they want to turn you into. This is what the Dajjal wants to turn you into, and he's going to do it. If you're not careful, he's going to put you in that category and turn you into this thing that he is, a being that does not have this decisive ability, is completely subservient to its whims and desires. He's going to try and turn you into that. The reason why I'm talking about this is because this is going to be mentioned now in this surah that I want to speak about, and we'll finish with this inshallah. We have some time remaining, alhamdulillah, we'll finish this. You see? So you can decide to become imprisoned, and that imprisonment is the imprisonment of the devils, the demons, who will be done what? They will be imprisoned in hellfire. They will have no choice to do anything. If they feel thirsty, they cannot choose what to drink. They will be given what Allah wants them to drink, boiling hot water or oil. In this realm, right now, you can choose. You can choose if you want to drink water, choose if you want to drink juice. Let me not talk too much about this because we are all fasting. But you can make the choice. As a demon in hellfire, you cannot choose anything. If you want to sleep, you cannot decide to go to sleep. If you want to sit and get some rest, you cannot decide to do that. Your will has now been taken away from you. However, for the dwellers of paradise, the will has been given full freedom now, not limited freedom. You can choose to eat if you want, to drink if you want, or however much you want, whichever you want, wherever you want, however big, vast, small, anything you want. Your will has been given. All the parameters have been lifted from the will. So in this world, there's a balance of these two in-betweens, complete constriction and complete freedom. Every being has been given this balanced position. So everyone has an equal opportunity. There is some restriction and there is some freedom. You cannot fly if you want to fly. Even if I say I want to fly, pull myself to fly. I can't fly. The will is not executed in that regard because the will of Allah has put a restriction on that. But if I want to stand, I can stand. So I've been allowed to do that much. You understand? This is what Imam Ali meant between put your one leg up and your other leg up at the same time. You cannot. Your will is in between the two. You see? So everyone has an in between the two. Some restriction and some freedom. And on this side now, the dwellers of hellfire have complete restriction. And on this side, the dwellers of paradise have complete freedom. But on Yawm al-Qiyamah, something unique takes place. This is what I want to come to elaborate. Because you need to think about this. Because then what you do here and now in this present moment will determine your situation on that day. So I want to put this in perspective for you so that now you contemplate this. So this is now Surah Infitar. Okay, and if you have your Quran, you can take a look at this, follow along, because I'm going to do the whole surah for you right now. But I'm not going to go too much in depth into it. I want to come to the crux of the surah. So we'll finish this in the next maybe 15-20 minutes, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا السماء انفطرت, when the sky breaks apart, وإذا الكواكب انتثرت, when the stars are falling and shattering and dispersing, وإذا البحار فجرت, and the seas are erupted, وإذا القبور بعثرت, and all the graves are expelling all their contents, everything is being thrown out now. علمت نفس ما قدمت وأخرت, every soul will know what it has put forth and put back. Because you had enough time now in that state of death to contemplate the entirety of your life. What you did and didn't do, what you should have done, what you should not have done, all that you wasted and all that you gained in your life. Now, in this state of death, before your resurrection, you have had enough time to contemplate everything. And you know everything now because it's full remembrance. Your heart is no longer affiliated with the delusions of the senses, with any of the veils. It's just you by yourself in this purgatoric state of no distractions whatsoever. So, alimat nafsum ma qaddamat wa akharat. Every soul will know ma qaddamat wa akharat, from its beginning up until its end, everything that it has done. Everything that it put forth and everything that it put back. Ya ayyuhal insanu ma gharraka bi rabbikal kareem. O mankind, now think about this. What it is that has deluded you from the remembrance of your Lord Almighty, the most noble, the most generous. What has deluded you? What has deceived you? Didn't you testify on that day when I gathered you? Didn't you affirm that I am your Lord? Didn't I send guidance to you? Didn't I send messengers to you? Have I not inspired you? Have I not given you the means? Have I not shown you favor? Have I not sustained you? Have I not raised you from when you were at the bottommost? Alam yajidka yatiman fa'awa? Did he not find you an orphan and he gave you shelter? Did he not favor you when you were lost and helpless? So what has deluded you? What has deluded? What's preventing you? Ma manaka? It goes right back to that first question that Iblis was asked. The same question is being asked to you. What prevented you? الذي خلقك فسواك فعدلك. He created you, He proportioned you, He balanced you. في أي صورة ما شاء ركبك. In whatever form He wanted, He gave you the best form that He willed. He willed that form. It was of His original conception. There's nothing in similitude to the human being. This is why the human being has a distinct quality in any genus. If you want to take the animal genus, there is a distinct quality that the human being has. If you want to take the angelic genus, there is still a distinct quality that the human being has. Huh? Kalla bal tukadhibuna bid-din. But no, on that you are denying. You're denying this, the Yawmuddin, that there's going to be a day of reckoning. You are in denial. And like I said, that denial doesn't have to be active denial. It can be passive denial. Just simply being in a state of ghafla, just simply not thinking about it is a denial of in one form. Just not thinking about it. You should be thinking about Yawmul Qiyamah every single day of your life. That's the bare minimum. That's the bare minimum. You should wake up every morning and be grateful to Allah that He has raised you. He has given you another day because it could have been your last. He's given you one more day to do whatever you can. You should be thinking about the day of reckoning every single day of your life. وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ لَحَافِظِينَ. And over you there are guardians. They are those who have kept record. They have recorded everything that you have done every single day. Kiraman katibin. They are noble guardians and they are recording everything. يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ. They know every single thing that you do or you have done. إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ لَفِي نَعِيمٍ. Indeed, the righteous will be in bliss, they will be in pleasure. Why? Because it doesn't affect them. They prepared themselves for this. They know. It's not just about, oh, I know there'll be Yawm al-Qiyamah, so that's not the knowing. It's the knowing in the heart of what it means to be in the divine presence on that day. It's that ma'rifah that you cannot quantify, that you will not read about in any of the books. It's not there. Any book you pick up cannot give you a description of what that means, that understanding. You have to experience it. I understand something, a little bit, a small measure of it. And I cannot explain to you what that feeling is, what that understanding is. I simply cannot put it in words. You have to understand it. And only you, when you contemplate, when you are one with yourself in your heart and one with the presence of Allah, only then will you understand it. وَإِنَّ الْفُجَّارَ لَفِي جَهِيمٍ. As for those who are wicked, the fujjar, they will be in hellfire. يَصْلَوْنَهَا يَوْمَ الدِّينِ. They will burn on that day. وَمَا هُمْ عَنْهَا بِغَائِبِينَ. They will not be able to avoid it. They will not be able to be absent from it. So now he asks you the question, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الدِّينَ. What will make you adrak, will make you realize? This is what I'm talking about, that understanding, that realization. It cannot be put into words. It cannot be put into statements. And only divine revelation can help you understand that. Only Allah can give you that explanation. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الدِّينَ. What will make you realize what is this Yawmuddin, what this recompense is going to be? And he repeats that ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not waste words. ثُمَّ مَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الدِّينَ. What's going to make you realize what is this Yawmuddin? Listen to the explanation now. And this is one of the things I've said before, that the Quran is such a book, a revelation, that not only introduces the concept, it explains the concept itself. And nothing else can explain that concept. It itself only can explain the concept. You will not find that explanation anywhere else. It will give you the concept and it will give you the explanation of the concept. So you can look up the dictionary definition of deen and yawm and put the two together and maybe have something. But what it really is, only the Quran can explain to you. So listen to the explanation Allah has given you. يَوْمَ لَا تَمْلِكُ نَفْسٌ لِنَفْسٍ شَيْئًا. On that day, no soul will possess for another soul, meaning no soul can help or has the ability or the power to help another soul, including itself. I cannot help you, you cannot help him, he cannot help her, you cannot help me, and I cannot help myself on that day either. No soul has the ability to help any other soul, including itself. This is the important piece, including yourself. You cannot help yourself either on that day. Why? Because your will has been completely constricted now. That little bit of freedom that he gave you in this life now has been taken away. You cannot control your body. You cannot control your shahwa, your ghadab, any aspect of you, your hands, your eyes, your ears, your tongue, your lips, nothing. All of these are now going to speak against you because in this life, they have been made subservient to your will. On that day, they will be subservient to the will of Allah. This is why he says in this ayah, وَالْأَمْرُ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلَّهِ. On that day, Amr, the will, the ultimate will is Allah's. No one has the will to do anything. So while you have this will, this ability, this freedom to execute, to direct your tongue to do this, say this, or to direct your hands to do that, or to direct your feet in a certain direction, or your eyes in a certain direction, okay? You still have this will today. So do it in the right way. This is the point now, the wisdom that's being drawn. Do it in the right way. Do it in the proper way. Do it for righteousness. Do it for Allah. Because on that day, you cannot do it. Your will has got no capacity over these other extensions that you have been given. وَالْأَمْرُ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلَّهِ. On that day, the will is Allah's only. Here you have on that day you have no will. And then if you succeed in this life, then in paradise, that will be given full freedom. And if you fail, on that day your will is constricted, it will now be eternally constricted. Then you have got complete damnation, eternal damnation. But if you gain his favor, then you are going to have eternal felicity and contentment. The heart will be content. The heart is content when the will is allowed to be free. But it will only be free on that in that state of existence. Let's stop here, inshallah. These are the 4 states that I wanted to highlight. So we're going to stop here, inshallah, because now I want to take, in the next session, I want to take a bit of a side route. I want to stop because instead of giving you all 5, I want to give you something else in between. And so in the next session, we're going to talk about the light now, the being, because now we spoke about the being and we said it's a point of light. Now we want to come, what is this point of light? Then we're going to talk about the hadith of Jibreel. There's a reason why I've put it like that. Then we're going to talk about time. And then in that subject, we're going to talk about this 5th element of your state of existence, which is eternity. Okay, so let's stop here, inshallah. And then we'll see you guys in the next session tomorrow, inshallah. جزاكم الله خيرا. ربنا تقبل سبحانك وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خيرا. الحمد لله.